In this episode, we delve into the chilling story of Ed Gein, the notorious figure whose gruesome crimes shocked the nation and forever blurred the lines between reality and horror fiction. Known as the Butcher of Plainfield, Gein's twisted actions in the 1950s became the dark inspiration for some of the most iconic horror characters in film and literature, including Norman Bates from Psycho and Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Join us as we explore the life, crimes, and unsettling legacy of one of America's most infamous killers. I'm Sammy.
And I'm Nicole. And we are Spooky Sleuths. Hey guys.
Hello.
Welcome back to Spooky Sleuths. Sammy's got a really, really disturbing story for us today.
Yeah, trigger warning for grossness. Trigger warning for desecration of bodies. It gets weird.
If you're watching on YouTube, we may not have very many photos because I don't want it to get taken down.
Right, but you can Google and there's plenty. So Edward Theodore Gein was born on August 27th, 1906 in La Crosse, Washington. He was born to George and Augusta Gein and had an older brother, Henry. He grew up in a very religious household, as his mother was very puritanical when it came to the sins of lust and carnal desire.
So at the start of the purity culture.
Yep. Ed's father was a timid alcoholic, so his mother ruled the roost. I did read that his father was physically abusive to both Ed and Henry as well in his drunken state.
For that time period, that's not
right.
surprising.
The family was a farming family who moved to Plainfield, Wisconsin in 1915. The farm was Ed's whole life. He rarely left except to go to school. See, Ed idolized his mother. She was very verbally abusive towards him, but he didn't care. She taught him that every human thought and deed was fueled by sin, especially sex. She taught Ed that sex was evil and that women were instruments of the devil, except for her, of course. She wasn't. As children, Ed and Henry were told that sex and lust were immoral and must be avoided. Their mother would punish the kids if they tried to make friends and had a clear hold on their lives. And masturbation? Forget about it. Ed's mother caught him once and grabbed his genitals and told Ed they were the curse of a man. So we can already see some trauma building.
Absolutely. It reminds me of David Berg and his mother's relationship. It's like copy and paste.
Right. Well, Henry was apparently concerned with Ed's obsession with their mother, as I'm sure many of us would be if our sibling was, just really... I mean, your baby is obsessed with you, but this is a different level of obsession.
Yeah.
Yeah. Henry didn't feel the same as Ed, and he would periodically confront their mother about how she treated them. Ed, needless to say, did not like that. When Ed was a kid, I'm talking like 9 to 13 years old, he was really confused about sex.
How could you not be?
Right. And this is an important time for discovering your identity and when a lot of people start thinking about dating or crushing on someone. You get your first childhood crush around that time frame. But due to his upbringing, Ed was really questioning things beyond what a normal child would.
Yeah.
He questioned his own masculinity mainly. He would ask his friends if he should amputate his penis. He even thought about becoming a woman altogether. Which is fine if that's the path you choose to go down. We're very...
Oh, yeah,
nothing against that. But it's the fact that he is that young and wanting to do it himself.
Right. It's the safety for me.
Yeah.
This wasn't... now if a child comes with these thoughts, that's...
There are steps we can take to assist with that child.
Education, therapy, see where we're at. But back then, and to do it yourself?
Yeah.
Boy.
Right. As he got older, the more twisted his mind got. He would obsessively read books about the female anatomy, read porn, because they didn't have videos back then. You had to read it. And while...
I mean, I get it. I love me a good smut book.
Miss Smut over there. And well, this isn't an indicator of anything when a normal person reads these, but he was obsessed with horror novels. I don't believe that horror novels, movies, video games lead to
and even
anything. But
I love me a good smutty horror book.
Yeah, I do. It was in his teen years that Ed's behavior turned from kind of strange, as in reading porn magazines at 13, which I guess isn't really that strange, but it is a little bit. But he turned to more sinister things. He began digging up women's graves and dissecting their bodies.
That's a little out there from just your typical 13-year-old flipping through a Playboy.
He would remove their sex organs, liver, and heads and take them home with him.
Why the liver?
I don't know.
Like the head, the sex organs, that, I mean, okay, it doesn't make sense to me, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it, with how he is being brought up, that makes sense with his character. However, the liver?
I don't know. I almost wonder if it was kind of a representation of his dad, because his dad was an alcoholic.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know. I couldn't really find anything on that, but like, that's my interpretation. In 1944, Ed was still living at home with his mother. He never left his mother's house. Lived there his entire life. His father had passed away in 1940, so Henry and Ed had to work odd jobs to help support their family. The pair were burning brush on their property when the fire got out of control. Henry died in this fire under mysterious circumstances. Ed called the police and reported his brother missing, but then led them directly to his body when they arrived. Henry's body was burned, of course, but the police also found bruises on his head. Nevertheless, they ruled it was an accident, but I wonder if that happened today, if that would have
been a red flag.
Yeah. Ed's mom died a year later from a stroke. Ed
I'm sure he was devastated.
Very distraught. He neglected everything in his home except special areas that his mother used frequently, creating a sort of shrine to her. Like, he boarded up those rooms to keep them in pristine condition, how she left them. And he basically used a bedroom and the kitchen and bathroom. And that was it. Everything else was a pigsty. His obsession continued with her, and he resumed grave digging, stealing women's body parts in an effort to bring her back to life. Ed stated that after his mother died, a force built up in me. So he set out on a mission to become his mother. Ed started his mission by taking apart his mother's body.
Oh my gosh.
He wanted to make a suit of her skin and literally become her.
Oh, a skin suit?
Yes. He would use the parts that he was dissecting from deceased women that he dug up to replace some parts of her. But then he realized he needed fresher skin. This is when he went from grave robbing to murdering. And I feel like grave robbing is not a strong enough term for that.
No.
But I don't know that another term. Clearly, Ed's mental state was not intact. As time progressed, he was not only growing more obsessed with becoming his mother, but he also took interest in Nazi science experiments, necrophilia, human taxidermy, and cannibals. So we know Ed Gein was using body parts from women that he dug up from the cemetery to create a skin suit and become his mother. I don't know how to rank the next part compared to that.
All right, here we go.
Like, I don't know if it's worse. It's certainly not better. But I don't know if it can get worse than that. You let me know. So Ed also made furniture from the women's body parts. It's estimated that Ed dug up the graves of up to 30 to 40 women. So he had spare parts lying around. Ed's bowls were actually human skulls. His utensils were bones, and his chairs were upholstered with human skin.
Oh my God.
He had gloves that were made of human skin stitched together.
This reminds me of American Horror Story Season 2 in the asylum. Like, their big, like, serial killer has, like, the lamps made out of the...
Yeah.
Yeah, that.
Well, he had lampshades made of a human face and a belt made from nipples.
A belt made of nipples?
Yes. Literal nipples that he would cut off of these dead women, and he sewed them onto a belt. He also had a corset that he made with a human torso and a drawstring for his curtains made of human lips. Everything he could make from a human body, he did. Everything in his house. I don't get it, but while all of this was going on, no one knew anything was awry. Sure, people thought he was odd, but no one suspected what was happening in his house.
Yeah. I don't think it was like, I bet his leather couch is actually human skin.
Yeah. I know. Ed was actually really trusted in his community.
No.
He worked as a handyman and, wait for it, a babysitter.
I would never let him around my baby.
You wouldn't know.
Oh, that's true.
That's right. He was a well-trusted babysitter.
That is crazy.
He would entertain the children with magic tricks, stories, and would even treat them to ice cream in the summer. So that just goes to show, don't let anyone around your kids. You never know what's happening. I could be the next Ed Gein up in that apartment. I'm not. But you let me around your kid.
You think you're the Zodiac killer. Now you're the reincarnation of Ed Gein. I'm starting to get concerned. I don't want that reputation.
Here. I would rather be the Zodiac killer than Ed Gein. No. I'd rather not be any of them.
If I go upstairs and find a belt made of nipples in your apartment, you're gonna
mind your own business.
Just another disclaimer. I know we've discussed this in many episodes, but I'm not giggling because it's funny. I'm giggling because I am so uncomfortable and I don't know how to properly process that emotion. Don't worry, I'll be seeking therapy.
Like I said, Ed was in need of fresh skin to complete his suit. His first murder was in December of 1954. This is 9 years after his mother died. So he's continued to dig up and steal women's body parts for 9 years before he escalated to murder. His first victim was 54-year-old Mary Hogan. Mary was a tavern owner in Pine Grove. Ed was a frequent patron of this tavern, but Mary disappeared one night from that tavern, and there were no leads in the case. So that case kind of just went dead. She was just a missing person.
That's not a good time to use the word dead.
No, I'll have to change it to cold.
I mean, okay.
So that case just went cold. There were no leads. She was just a missing person. His next victim was Bernice Warden in November of 1957. So a 3-year gap between those as well. This is very strange for a killer. This was the first day of deer season, so the whole town basically was out hunting. Bernice worked at a hardware store in town, and in walks Ed. She actually owned the hardware store. Ed was actually at the store the night before. Bernice's son was in the store at the time and heard Ed tell her he would be back the next day to buy antifreeze. Well, the next day comes around, and in comes Ed to buy that antifreeze. He brought with him a .22 caliber bullet and told Bernice he also wanted to buy a new .22 caliber pew-pew weapon. When she showed him the weapon, he loaded it and shot her. And then he took her body back to his farm.
That's bold.
Yeah. Broad daylight. Ed did leave some evidence behind when he murdered Bernice, thankfully.
I'm sure.
Right? Bernice's son arrived at the store later in the day and found her blood trail and a receipt for antifreeze.
And because he was there when that...
Yes, he immediately knew who this culprit was because he remembered Ed from the night before. So he called the police and he told them about the conversation. And that same afternoon, Ed was arrested.
So Ed isn't your typical, like, serial killer.
Right.
But had that not been found, he would have been.
Yes. And I think I say a little bit later on, they're estimating he could have murdered up to 10 women, but these are the only 2 that he has admitted to, and that, we really have any proof to back it up.
Right.
The police went to Ed's farm and arrested him just as he finished his dinner. Ed's house had no electricity, so the police brought in generators and flashlights and searchlights and got to work. Not all police officers could handle what they found inside, some becoming ill.
Yeah, I'm sure. That is insane.
I'm pretty morbid, but I don't know how I would act if I went into that house and saw that. I'd probably be gagging too.
Not at first, because you wouldn't recognize what it is at first.
But then when you found out and you're like, oh, this belt is interesting. Oh, that's a nipple belt. And then I would be like, no. Mm-mm. I'm out.
The belts that used to be real big, like the big, rhinestone belts. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I think so.
Okay, that, everyone would wear, over their shirts and stuff.
Yes.
I just imagine Ed walking around with this nipple belt.
Oh, my God. Again, she's getting therapy.
Okay.
The police found the furniture made of human body parts, Ed's skin suit, and other body parts that Ed just hadn't found use for yet, or he was just collecting. Investigators found Bernice's body in the barn, strung up like a deer. She was hung upside down from the rafters and sliced open. She had been decapitated, and her head was found in a sack nearby. Police also found her heart in a plastic bag near the stove, implying that he was going to eat her heart.
Oh, yeah.
Remember earlier when I said he was getting into cannibalism? Yeah. In addition to Bernice's body, they also found the body of Mary Hogan. More specifically, her face. Not her head, her face. While Ed only admitted to these 2 murders, it is suspected that he could have murdered up to 10 women. He claims the remaining body parts were dug up from graves, though. Police also found various dismembered body parts. These include fingernails, ears, 4 noses, and the genitals from 9 different women, and masks made of faces. The remains of at least 10 women were found in Ed's home, the ones they could identify.
Yeah.
Ed pled not guilty by reason of insanity, of course. He was found mentally incompetent and was not fit for trial. Given this, Ed was sentenced to an insane asylum. He spent time in Central State Hospital for the Criminally Insane, which is a maximum security facility, and later at Mendota State Hospital. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. 10 years later, in 1968, he was found mentally fit for trial, and his case did go to trial.
Oh, wow.
For a week.
Oh.
He was found unfit yet again. He was found guilty of Bernice's murder, but it was found that he was insane during the time of her murder, so he was sentenced to life at Central State Hospital. He did petition for release in 1974, but it was rejected.
That's good.
Ed had been diagnosed with lung cancer at some time in the 1970s. He eventually died due to complications from lung cancer and respiratory illnesses on July 26, 1984. He is buried in a county cemetery near Plainfield, but in June 2000, his gravestone was stolen.
Of course it was.
Police thought that this was related to occult groups, but they found the stone a year later and placed it in storage. His grave is now unmarked. I find it ironic that he can't have a gravestone due to theft and vandalism, but he was digging up the graves of women who had gravestones and stealing their body parts.
And nobody thought
Yeah.
that was an issue.
Ed Gein was a twisted man, but I can't help but wonder if nature versus nurture here would have mattered.
Right.
If he had a mother who instilled healthy values, a family who got him treatment for his mental illness, could these women have had their lives spared and the dozens of deceased women lay in peace?
I don't know.
I think that is a genuine case that I think would be great to study, because you have all of the elements in the beginning and then childhood. that can tell you something is going to happen.
Right. Like his mother built him to be who he was.
Right. And he had schizophrenia, which I think can onset later, like in your 20s. It usually is in your 20s, right? Mm-hmm. So it's possible that was, I mean, he probably wasn't exhibiting those symptoms in his teens, but clearly he had to have been exhibiting some symptoms.
I mean, at 13, he was doing crazy.
Right. So I just wonder if his family had intervened, if he had a healthy family dynamic, if this could have all been avoided.
Right.
So let us know what you think down in the comments below. If you made it to the end of the video, make sure you leave a smiley face in the comments. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on our YouTube. If you're listening over on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please leave us a rate and review.
Check us out over on TikTok and Instagram at Spooky Sleuths Pod. We've got some cool stuff coming up over there. And on that note,
stay spooky, friends.